In presidential politics, a huge win over the weekend for former President Trump in South Carolina.
I just want to say that I have never seen the Republican Party so unified as it is right now. Never been like that.
Not total unity, as former Governor Nikki Haley remains in the race, even though she lost to Mr. Trump in her home state.
I'm not giving up this fight when a majority of Americans disapprove of both Donald Trump and Joe Biden.
Now some are calling for Haley to bow out so the GOP can rally behind the former president.
Well, it was another massive victory, another historic victory in another Republican primary election. He's going to win it all. He will win every state. He's going to win the vast majority of delegates.
South Carolina Republican Congresswoman Nancy Mace is our guest today.
There is no path for victory for Nikki Haley or anyone else, and it's time to unite behind the presumptive nominee, and that's Donald Trump, because the last thing we want to do is give the Democrats any more fire. We need to stop taking shots at Donald Trump. That includes Nikki Haley, whom I respect because she was the first female governor of South Carolina. She was a great governor, but we got to stop taking shots at Donald Trump. We got to start taking on Joe Biden so we can win the White House back. And that starts today.
Has this been at all awkward for you, since Nikki Haley is one of your constituents and so is Senator Tim Scott, who was a candidate at one point?
Well, it's actually it's interesting because it's historic. I don't know another member of Congress that has had not one, but two constituents running for president at the same time. And obviously, I respect Senator Scott. I respect Governor Haley immensely. Both of them have made history in South Carolina. They're both liked by South Carolina, but South Carolina loves Donald Trump, which is why he's running away with the nomination. And I think they both have a really bright future once we get beyond 24.
Senator Lindsey Graham and state GOP Chair Drew McKissick joined President Trump on stage after his win in the state, where they were booed by voters. What do you make of that?
Well, we had a very energized group of voters, and they like to make their feelings known. But at this juncture, we all have to come together, and we've all got to get behind Donald Trump. If we're going to win in November, that means we've got to bring together different parts of the Republican Party. We have to bring independents, right of center, left of center folks into the fold and start unifying behind the man who can beat Joe Biden, and that's Donald Trump.
President Trump continues to tease his pick for vice presidential nominee with Senator Scott, Vivek Ramaswamy, Congresswoman Stefanik, some of the names on the short list. Do you have a favorite?
Well, I certainly am going to be biased towards Senator Tim Scott of all the names mentioned. They're all great people. They're all great conservatives. And I hope that, it'll be up to Donald Trump to pick his running mate. But I hope that it'll be someone who can bring over pockets of voters that we're going to need in November. And I think Tim Scott would be a great person to do that.
To Capitol Hill, the GOP-led House continues its calls for the Senate to take up an impeachment trial of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. There's been some speculation that Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer may not even hold a trial. Do you think that Senate Democrats will take up impeachment, and what do you expect would come out of a trial?
Oh, absolutely not. I don't expect them to take up impeachment. If they do, I would be surprised if they did, because this is the number one issue driving people to the polls. And certainly Republican leadership, Republican policy, Donald Trump leadership, Donald Trump policy is winning voters over, because every city and every town and every state has now become a border city, a border town, a border state. We've had an invasion of 8 million illegals coming across this country. We have mayors like Eric Adams putting illegals into schools and luxury housing, giving them $10,000 worth of cash and credit cards, treating them better than we treat our own citizens. And this isn't going to fly. There's more violence on the streets, there's more fentanyl, there's more human trafficking, more sex trafficking, all because Joe Biden wants an open border. He wants those illegals to vote in our elections, and he wants to transform our country into a country we don't recognize. And that's not what people want. Americans want, by and large, people to come here legally, follow our laws, and come here the way that everybody else has.
There's likely more fuel to the fire after a nursing student at the University of Georgia was murdered over the weekend, allegedly by an illegal immigrant from Venezuela.
It's such a tragic story. And unfortunately, it's one that is playing out over and over again in every state in the country. And in fact, we have a state lawmaker Stuart Jones, who has told his story of being the godparent to a 4-year-old girl. And the illegal who murdered her was deported and sent back under Donald Trump, but let back in under Joe Biden. And he murdered this little girl in the state of South Carolina. And it's tragic to hear these stories. We shouldn't hear these stories. These stories should not be happening, but they're happening under Joe Biden.
The Biden administration is considering executive orders on immigration to help stem the flow of migrants into the nation. What actions do you think could be taken, and do you think these executive orders could be effective in helping solve the border crisis?
Just in time for the election season. Like, where has Joe Biden been for the last 3 years? In fact, the very first day he was sworn into office, by the time the sun set, he had reversed every good policy, border policy of Donald Trump, including halting right in the middle of construction a wall at the southern border, including Title 42, including Remain in Mexico. Every good idea, every good policy Donald Trump had, Joe Biden reversed. And, now he's paying the price for it. They're probably seeing the polling on it and seeing how Donald Trump can beat Joe Biden on just about every single issue, but in particularly on border security. I think it'll be too little too late. I hope that he can help stem the tide of illegal immigration, but will it happen by November? We'll have to see.
There's also the investigation into Biden family business dealings. We saw President Biden's younger brother, James, testifying behind closed doors on Capitol Hill, a long day of testimony in front of House Republicans and House lawmakers looking into their business dealings. What'd you make of the testimony, and where do you think this investigation is heading?
Well, from what I've heard so far, James Biden likely committed perjury. I mean, the Biden brand is nothing but perjury and lies. And we know that there is evidence of Joe Biden being involved. We know that there are checks or loans with no loan documents. We know that there were business deals done with no business documents. If your last name is Biden, there's a separate system of justice. There is no justice for you when you break the law.
And of course, Hunter Biden is due on the Hill this coming week. That should be quite a moment on Capitol Hill.
Absolutely. But it's good that he's finally taken us up on the subpoena, the lawful subpoena that we issued. And I found it disgusting when in January he came to the Oversight Committee to defy the subpoena, to give a middle finger to America that he is better than everybody else. And there'll be hundreds of questions asked of Hunter Biden. And I hope that he'll tell the truth. I doubt it, but we'll see what he says.
Okay, Congress is also looking to avoid a government shutdown in March with deadlines in the first week of the month. Are you hopeful deals get reached for funding, or do you think we're just going to punt it a couple more months again?
I wouldn't be surprised if there's an attempt to do an omnibus or minibus or another short-term CR. Schumer has everything he needs to keep the government open. He has appropriations bills from House Republicans, but he refuses to take them up. So if the government shuts down, this is the Schumer shutdown. And I won't take any other answer because I know what the facts are. And the facts are that House Republicans have sent him spending bills, have sent him appropriations bills in the lawful, legal way. And he has refused to take them up, including border security. So this is all on him.
Obviously, the job of House Speaker is difficult when you have such a narrow majority. Obviously, you were one of the folks who was unhappy with former Speaker Kevin McCarthy. Now you've got Mike Johnson in the job with even fewer GOP members. How's he doing, and do you feel for him trying to lead the conference forward with such a narrow majority?
Well, he inherited most of all these bad deals are the part of Kevin McCarthy. And in fact, Kevin McCarthy led us to one of our most narrow majorities ever in our history. We should have had more seats, but because he failed at the ballot box in 22 and didn't pay attention to the issues that mattered, like abortion, we didn't gain as many seats as we should have. And then he quit on the Republican conference. Kevin McCarthy put our majority at risk again by quitting halfway through his term. And then he gave all these bad deals to Mike Johnson. So I commend Mike Johnson for trying to figure this out. But there are factions within our party, and I've sat in these rooms, these private meetings, and I've seen how hard Mike Johnson works. I've seen how smart he is and how good he is at the job, only to have the rug taken out from under him by members of our own party. I've been a part of conversations where he is trying to attach border security to spending measures, and we have certain factions within our party who say that they're going to kill the bill if he does that. And so we are our own worst enemy right now. We should all be supporting Mike Johnson. He's very smart. He is holding the line on immigration and the border, and we ought to support him. And those that don't ought to be outed for it.
Do you think if they don't get their way that some of your colleagues on the right may try to get rid of him?
I don't think that will happen. I mean, I could be wrong here, but I have a lot of confidence in how Mike Johnson is operating. And it's not his fault that there are people, some of them are Kevin McCarthy loyalists, who are trying to sabotage him at every chance they get. And I've been witness to those meetings. I've seen it. It's disgusting. It's gross. And these are people who are putting their ego and the interests of Kevin McCarthy above our country and her citizens. And it's time to put a stop to it.
Congresswoman Nancy Mace of the great state of South Carolina, a pleasure picking your brain. I wish you a wonderful week.
You too. Thank you.